Well, we're ending the month of March on the channel with a superhero film, albeit a supernatural superhero film, as based on the comic written by James O'Barr, and at the channel point's request of Blade, today we'll be reviewing The Crow, which was released in 1994. Directed by Alex Proyas, The Crow starred Brandon Lee, son of Bruce Lee. It centers around a man named Eric Draven, who was brought back to life a year after he and his girlfriend are murdered to avenge their deaths. The film received positive reviews from critics and on a $23 million budget grossed $94 million at the box office and developed a strong cult following. It also led to a franchise, including 3 sequels and a television series, pretty much none of which included the original cast members. The reason for that is unfortunately what this film is most known for, is that Brandon Lee was accidentally killed on set. There's a scene in the film that called for a revolver to be fired at Lee from about 12 to 15 feet, and they were going to use blank rounds instead of dummy cartridges, which they used in an earlier scene. However, the genius production company behind the film sent the firearms specialist home early, and thus the guns were not properly checked. That ended up being fatal as there was still a dummy round trapped in the barrel, and when Lee was shot with this dummy round from a .44 Magnum, it was fired with the same force as if the gun had been loaded with a live round, which struck him in the stomach and immediately shattered 2 of his arteries. Lee was rushed to the hospital and they performed surgery for about 6 hours, but it was unsuccessful, and he died at about 1:30 in the morning. There was debate afterwards on whether to finish the film, as Lee had already completed most of his scenes, and they decided to finish it using CGI and also Lee's stunt double, Chad Stahelski, who, fun fact, was also the stunt double for Keanu Reeves on The Matrix, and ended up directing Reeves in all 3 soon-to-be 4 John Wick films. This incident also came back to light recently, as just last October, Alec Baldwin accidentally killed a cinematographer, Hala Hutchins, by using a prop gun that had not been properly checked. Brandon Lee died at the age of 28, 4 years younger than his father Bruce, who died at 32. And it's tragic that this film is not remembered for much more than his death, because this was legitimately a great film and a great performance by Lee that probably would have jump-started a good acting career for him. So instead of talking more about Lee's death, let's go for the last thing he lived for, as we review The Crow, released in 1994. So our film begins in Detroit the night before Halloween, called Devil's Night, where Sergeant Daryl Albrecht is upon a brutal crime scene. A man named Eric Draven has been thrown out a window and killed, while his fiancée Shelley Webster is very badly wounded. As Shelley's being loaded into the ambulance, she asks Albrecht to take care of Sarah, a young girl who was staying with her and Eric. 1 year later, it's revealed that Shelley did die, and Sarah goes to put flowers on the graves of her and Eric. As she leaves, a crow lands on Eric's grave and pecks at it, and then Eric himself rises from the grave. Meanwhile, a street gang, including leader T-Bird, Tintin, Funboy, and Skank, go around town setting fires. The crow leads Eric back to his old apartment where he finds his cat is still alive. After picking it up, he has flashbacks to the incident and remembers what happened. Turns out it was T-Bird and his gang who invaded and brutally beat and raped Shelley and then killed Eric when he tried to intervene. Enraged, Eric impales himself through the top of the window, and then his wounds heal immediately. Eric then paints his face like a mask in his apartment and sets out for his revenge. Later that night, the gang is split up and Tintin is pawning some stuff at a shop owned by a man named Gideon. Tintin ends up in an alleyway where he's ambushed by Eric. After Eric makes him admit what he did, he ends up stabbing Tintin with his own knives. Meanwhile, we meet mob boss Top Dollar and his lover Micah, who is also his half-sister, which is nasty. We also learn why Sarah used to stay with Shelley and Eric, as her mother Darla is a drug addict shooting up with Funboy. Eric, meanwhile, then breaks into Gideon's pawn shop and stabs him through the hand before retrieving Shelley's engagement ring. He then instructs Gideon to tell the others that death is coming for them before setting the shop ablaze. Outside, he's confronted by Albrecht, who he tells basically the same thing before vanishing. Eric also saves Sarah from being hit by a car, and does not reveal his face to her, but does give her a clue by saying a phrase he used to say. Meanwhile, Albrecht has Eric's file pulled and begins to put things together. For Eric, Funboy is next on the list, and he goes and confronts him and Darla. After knocking Funboy out, he squeezes the morphine out of the veins of Darla and tells her to go home and be a good mother. He then overdoses Funboy with multiple needles, which Top Dollar's henchman Grange sees before Eric leaves out the window. Eric then goes to Albrecht's house and explains who he is and why he's there, and also sees his own case file. He also absorbs memories from Albrecht, revealing that Albrecht stayed with Shelley for the 30 hours of pain she was in as she died. And Eric has now had that pain absorbed into him, as if he's not already dealing with enough. Meanwhile, Gideon meets with Top Dollar and informs him on Eric's actions, before Top Dollar rewards him by stabbing him through the throat. Eric then comes across T-Bird and kidnaps him, forcing him to drive across the city with the police following them. Skanky steals a car and tries to follow them as well, but he accidentally takes out the police in the process. Eric then ties up T-Bird in his own car and sends him into a river as the car explodes. Meanwhile, things are looking up for Sarah a little bit, as Darla is finally trying to be a good mother. Albrecht is then suspended from the police force by Detective Torres, who is mad that Albrecht stole the case file and is holding out on him about Eric. Sarah then goes to Eric's apartment, where they finally reunite. Skanky meanwhile goes to seek protection from Top Dollar, and Micah realizes that the crow is what gives Eric his powers. Top Dollar hosts a meeting with other crime leaders about setting a big fire around the city before Eric shows up and kills them all. Well, not them all. Top Dollar, Micah, and also Grange get away, but Skanky does not. Well, the four are dead and his job is done, so Eric goes back to his grave, where he says his final goodbyes with Sarah. As Sarah's leaving, however, she's abducted by Grange, and he, Top Dollar, and Micah hold her hostage. The crow informs Eric of this, and he confronts them in an abandoned church. As they arrive, Grange shoots the crow, injuring it, which means that Eric is no longer immortal. Micah then takes the crow, hoping to absorb its power, and Top Dollar is about to kill Eric before Albrecht shows up, and a gunfight ensues in which Grange is killed. Albrecht's then wounded by a bullet from Micah, who Eric confronts at the top of the tower. As Micah's about to shoot Eric, the crow wrenches free from her grasp and claws her eyes out, and she falls through the bell tower and dies. Eric then confronts Top Dollar on the roof, and after he throws Sarah almost off the roof, him and Eric have a sword fight. Top Dollar wins by impaling Eric from behind when he's distracted by Sarah falling off the roof, but then Eric truly wins by delivering the 30 hours of pain that Shelley had to endure into Top Dollar's mind. And this is way too much for him to handle, and he falls off the roof of the church and dies. In the aftermath, Albrecht goes to the hospital and Sarah goes home, while Eric goes back to the gravesite where he's finally reunited with Shelley, his soul finally able to rest. The crow then gives Sarah Shelley's engagement ring, and Sarah monologues that the way to keep people alive is to love them forever, as the crow flies off into the distance. Talking about underrated aspects of this film, I'd also like to acknowledge the other people who starred in this film, including Rochelle Davis, Ernie Hudson, Michael Winscott, Bai Ling, Sophia Sheenus, Anna Levine, David Patrick Kelly, Angel David, Lawrence Mason, Michael Massey, Tony Todd, John Polito, Bill Raymond, and Marco Rodriguez all did tremendous jobs in this. I'd also like to acknowledge Michael Berryman, who was not technically in this film, although he was supposed to be, under the role of Skull Cowboy, who was originally in the comic book. However, his scenes were cut as they were not able to be properly finished after Lee's death. However, if you'd like to see some of Skull Cowboy's scenes, they are crudely available on YouTube. And those rewrites really make you think that this was already a really good film as it was. If that tragedy hadn't happened and they had kept Skull Cowboy and it had been written how it was originally supposed to be written, it could have been an even better film. But even without that, it's still one of the better comic book films ever, in my opinion, and definitely one of the most underrated. Lee's performance in this, as previously stated, was pretty good. The action was great. The visuals were really fun in this film. It's just a shame that some of the production wasn't better. But honestly, instead of indulging in weirdo conspiracy theories about Lee's death, I think this is the best way to remember him, for his tremendous performance in this film. And it is easy to think about what he could have done, but we should also appreciate what he actually did, especially considering he literally died for it. But would I recommend this film? Absolutely. Again, it's great visually, it's very well acted, it's got a great plot, great action, and if you ignore everything else that happened around it and just look at it as a film, it's a very good, very fun, very underrated film that I definitely recommend you see. As that is going to do it for my review of The Crow. Thank you, Blade, for using your points on this. I appreciate it. What we'll be back with on the channel next week, I don't know, but there will be a video next week. Last 2 months, there's not been a video the first month of the week. There will be one this week, though. That is going to do it, or next week, though, I should say. That is going to do it for me today, though. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to leave it a like. If you want to follow any of my social media links, they're all in the description down below. Thank you to all my patrons for supporting me and my channels. With all that being said, though, my name is Tanfrey16. This has been my review of The Crow, released in 1994, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.